there in the diagram talking about the high pressure valve. We were talking about the bypass valve. We talked about heat recovery, three-way valves. And you mentioned the pack controller, the 728D. So I guess the AK-PC728. This one says B. Tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah, this is where it all comes together. We talked about all components. We talked about the ejectors, the valves, the heat recovery unit. This is where it all comes from. So again, you talked about the magic valve, but this is basically where the magic happens. Right?
Yeah.
So this is the main controller. It's the AK-PC782B. AK-PC stands for Added Cool Pack Controller.
Okay.
Now we have a B version. We started out with the A version.
Yeah.
But the B version means that we now have IP connectivity here.
Oh, okay.
So the A version was communicating over LAN communication.
Yeah.
The B version communicates with the system manager over IP. That's the main difference.
Okay.
That's what we changed.
Okay,
So
that's
this
great.
is where it all comes together. So the whole system that we saw before, the MT compressors, IT compressors, LT, all the speed drives, the high pressure valves, ejectors, fan control on the gas coolers, it's all being controlled by one controller.
Yeah.
This controller, this is the main hardware, so this is where it all starts.
Yep.
We have 11 inputs, and those 11 inputs you can use for pressure and temperature sensors, 0 to 10 volt inputs, or just on-off inputs.
Yep.
And we have 8 outputs on the bottom.
Okay. Yeah.
And the 8 outputs you can use for your compressors and fans or what other. Of course, if you need to control the complete transcritical rack that we talked about before, these 11 inputs and 8 outputs, it's not enough.
Yeah.
Right? You need a lot more.
Yeah.
Especially for the stepper valves alone. We have no output for the stepper valves, so we need different I/O modules to connect to this. So here on the side, we have this little slide connector on the side, so we can have a lot of modules that look exactly the same as this type of hardware, and you can basically expand your controller. The logic is inside of this one, and the one that we can connect is just expanding I/Os, and we have a lot of different I/Os modules. We have modules with outputs, we have modules with inputs, we have combined ones with inputs and outputs. We also have one module for stepper valves, so for the CCM, CCMTs. So you basically, before you define or configure your system, you need to check which outputs do I need, which inputs do I need. We have in the manual, again, manual, a little overview where you can set up, where you basically check all the inputs and outputs you have, and in the end it tells you which outputs or I/O modules you need to connect to this one. But this one can be a big one. It can be up to 1/2 meter or 1 meter in length.
Okay, I got a question about that. What happens if you don't have space in your box? Can you use wires to connect it down below?
Good question. In the beginning, no. Since a few years, yes. So you don't have to make your switchboard bigger just to accommodate for this controller. But these days we have another module so that you can mount on, let's say, the second DIN rail. And there you can continue with the I/O module. So you will need to have one extra module. That's an AKCM, that's an Added Cool Communication Module 101. You connect that here on the second module, and there you connect all the rest of the I/O modules.
No, and that is really cool. I really like that. So now I got this controller, I got it all wired up. How do I program it? Do I need a computer? Do I need this system management thing? How would I program it? Because that's really important for a technician. Do I have a little handheld thing?
Yeah. This is of course let's say the biggest thing in the system. This needs to be running very well. So we have a separate software for this called Service Tool.
Service Tool.
So you connect this in your engine room with the cable from your laptop to this port here. To the USB port here. I mean, and you can have a direct connection. You have the Service Tool. It has wizard-like feel to it. So you can go through all the screens. It will ask you what type of system you have. Do you have a booster system? Do you have parallel compressors? Do you have high pressure valves? Do we have heat recovery? All that stuff. And then it takes you through the steps to set that up. Also on the pressures, because most people know how many compressors are in your system. But what is the set point you need for your high pressure? You know, a lot of people don't know. and that is also where the compressor controller helps you, right?
Yeah.
You set up your receiver pressure. That's 9 out of 10 times. It's a fixed pressure,
Yep.
and then it will also by itself set up the minimum and maximum allowed receiver pressure. It will set up some of the emergency settings, and also for the high pressure. We talked about the high pressure not being, it's not one setting, right? It's dependent on the outside temperature,
Exactly.
ambient. So the high pressure can vary from maybe 60 to 110 bar. It depends on the temperature outside.
Exactly.
So you basically only set a minimum gas cooler pressure and a maximum gas cooler pressure. That's more or less the only two settings you do. And then the controller takes it from there.
That is awesome, because now you get a full integrated solution with everything talking to one another. Because I'm assuming when we talked about that E326A, where that's a standalone, and they use this, that's separate from the main controller. Now with this, the algorithms are all connected. It's talking to this side of the system, to that side of the system, and it makes everything work and function more smoothly.
And this is basically controlling the whole system from your, because in the end, all the evaporators, they're also connected to the back. We talked about in the podcast before, everything is connected in a transcritical booster system. So if something is wrong on that side of the system, it might be that you see the first signs of trouble on the completely other side of the system. And you need to understand that everything is connected, especially in transcritical booster systems. So setting up this controller, you do it with the service tool software. That's a separate software, free software that you can download from our site. You only need the USB cable, which is a standard USB cable you can buy anywhere. And in the end, when the whole system is up and running, we have the system manager up here, and that ties in basically the whole system on the communication level. So you don't need a system manager to keep your system running, because in the end, we talked about the case controller, we talked about the pack controller. They are running basically standalone. They're running without any communication. This is just what ties it all together. So all controllers, be it 1 or be it 120, they're all talking to this system manager, so they're all connected here through LON or Modbus or IP. And you can set up some pictures. It can take all the alarms, so any alarm in the system, be it urgent or not, it will go here. And here in the system manager, we decide what do we do with an alarm. Do we only show it in this screen, or do we need to forward this to a monitoring center somewhere, so the installer gets the alarm in their monitoring system and can act on it.
No, I love that. I like what you said earlier, the podcast we did. So make sure to check out the Refrigeration Mentor podcast with Patrick Clardy from Danfoss, because that's a great one. We dive in deeper on the ejector valve system. Well, Patrick, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to show me all these valves. And once again, get onto the Danfoss website, get the Danfoss app, RefTool app. That's one of my favorite apps that I use all the time. And really, reach out to us. If you have questions or comments, we're here to help. Thank you.
Right?
Awesome, buddy.
Hey, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you got something out of it, something that you can use in your daily life. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, and click the bell button, because when you do click the bell button, it will notify you anytime new videos are released. Also, check out the Refrigeration Mentor webpage at refrigerationmentor.com, where I'll have all the different trainings, upcoming events, the different podcasts I've been on, as well as the Refrigeration Mentor podcast. If you want to check that out on Apple, Spotify, Google, any service provider of your choice. Super excited to see you at the next video. Now let's get a conversation going.